July 23rd, 2020 special board meeting of the Marion County School Board is called to order. I'd like to ask anybody if you have on hats or if you have cell phones to please turn them off. For the courtesy of those listening to the meeting, I'm requesting everyone in the audience to please turn off your electronic devices, put them on vibrate.
Thank you.
Later in the meeting, up to 30 minutes will be provided for individuals to address the board on matters concerning the operation of the Marion County school system or the school board only. If you wish to address the board regarding a regular agenda item or matters on which the board customarily takes action, you must first complete a peach form located on the table in the hallway. The procedures applicable for each are on a separate sheet. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mrs. Beth McCall, District 2.
Here.
Mrs. Nancy Stacy, District 1.
Here.
Mrs. Nancy Thoreau, District 4.
Here.
Mr. Eric Cummings, District 3.
Here.
Mrs. Kelly King, District 5.
Here.
Dr. Diane Gullett, Superintendent.
Here.
Ms. Suzanne Green, School Board Attorney.
Here.
Ms. King, do you have the admission?
Yes,
Can
sir.
you read out?
I do have our mission.
Thank you.
Okay, we are the Marion County School District Governance Team. If we chose one word to describe us, it would be student-centered because student success is our mission. When we come together to work, we are efficient, effective, and productive. Our three most important characteristics are dedicated, transparent, and individually responsible. To work well together, we must demonstrate respect, confront reality, and be accountable. We will always put students first, and we will leave a legacy of success.
Thank you. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll now ask the school board's attorney to explain the rules governing persons who wish to address the school board this morning.
In compliance with Section 286.0114 Florida statute, the school board has adopted uniform procedures for public speakers who wish to speak at today's meeting, either regarding one of today's agenda items or a matter relating to the operations of the school district. These procedures will ensure the public has a reasonable opportunity to be heard on school board and school district matters. A written summary of these procedures is available from the table in the hallway. Public speaker forms are also located on that table. The completed forms are due to the school board secretary no later than 9:10 a.m. This morning speakers will be called prior to the business portion of the school board meeting in the order of receipt by the school board secretary. Before you begin speaking, please state your full name and address for the record and spell your last name. Each speaker will have 5 minutes of time. However, if there are more than 5 persons who wish to speak, the board may seek consensus to limit each speaker's time to 3 minutes. When the speaker has 1 minute remaining, I will provide the speaker with a visual notice to complete his or her comments. Speakers may not yield their time to others. Speakers and meeting attendees are expected to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. Therefore, verbal attacks and profanity are strictly prohibited. Pursuant to the procedures for public comments, speakers are not to identify specific individuals other than themselves or their child unless this statement is provided 24 hours in advance. Thank you for your attention to the board requirement. I have no further comments.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the board for consensus to move public comment to after the presentation, as I think most of these are pertaining to the presentation. Yes. Thank you. All right. May I have a motion to discuss the reopening of schools?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Thoreau, seconded by Ms. McCall. In discussion, all in favor signify by aye. Dr. Gullett, you got some updates for the board?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chairman Cummings, members of the board. Our team is delighted to be able to bring back some updates from last week and information that we will share, and we will be happy to answer any questions and have discussion at the conclusion. So I would like to introduce Mr. Vianello, our Deputy Superintendent.
Good morning, Dr. Gullett. Good morning, school board members. I'd like to wish everyone in the audience a good morning as well, and those who are watching from our schools and at home. I hope everybody is safe and doing well. On the screen, you will see the topics that we will discuss today. I will very, very briefly, I know we've reviewed these several times, I will go over our changes to date, and then we're going to take a deep dive. You're going to hear from Mr. Leppert and Mrs. Rora, and we will talk about our cleaning procedures as they relate to our campuses, our clinics, our school buses, our cafeterias. We will walk through step by step those cleaning procedures. Then you will hear from J.C. Oliver, and Mrs. Oliver will be talking about some of the most frequently asked questions that we're getting from our employees. And then you're going to hear from Stephen Ayers. Mr. Ayers will talk through 3 different calendar options based upon the discussion that we had last Thursday, when school will start and what those options will look like on the calendar, as well as tying into our professional development. So as we get into the changes to date, I would like to remind our community that the most recent changes that the board that we enact after any meeting can be found on our school website. So if you go to our MCPS website on the landing page, the home page, right there in the top banner, you will see any changes, the most frequently discussed changes that we have as a school board. So I would remind the community after today's school board meeting to please look at our website, and you will have a summary of all of our changes there. So a reminder, we have our extracurricular activities. For those that chose MCPS Online, they are able to participate in extracurricular activities. We did extend the parent survey. We moved the online MCPS Online from a semester deadline to a 9-week deadline. I'll bring your attention to the last bullet point, and that's what we'll be discussing today. We'll be looking at the calendar. Where I want to pause and spend a little bit of time is on our face covering resolution. And for employees and for our students and families, as a reminder to them that the school board did pass a resolution requiring that face coverings be worn, that could be masks or face shields, in all incidences where social distancing cannot be adhered to. That would cover our school buses, that would cover our cafeteria, that would cover our hallways. It would include our classrooms when we cannot follow CDC guidelines and keep our students or our employees 6 feet apart. When we can social distance appropriately, then masks don't have to be worn. They can be worn. That would be an individual choice. But when we cannot adhere to CDC guidelines, then there is a requirement for all employees and all students to wear masks or face coverings. So we've been getting a lot of questions around our face shields. We have purchased one of these face shields. These are disposable face shields. We will have enough in stock for every student and every employee when we open the school year. The questions have come, do these face shields, do they meet CDC guidelines? So to answer that question, I'd like to bring up Andrea Simmons. Andrea has presented before the board before. She is our health liaison to our Department of Health, and she is doing an absolute wonderful job, and she can best answer that question.
Good morning, everyone. So based on the direction of our local Department of Health, we've had a lot of meetings and conversations with the administrator in the epidemiology department, and the guidelines that are on the CDC website. A face shield may be used without a mask so long as it wraps around the sides of the wearer's face and extends below the chin. And the face shields that we have meet that guideline. There was also questions being asked about them being disposable versus reusable, and the CDC has put forth guidelines for all healthcare facilities about the extended use and reuse of certain PPE products, one of those products being face shields. And so long as the face shield is dedicated to one user, is cleaned immediately if it's soiled, and at least once per day, so it would be cleaned at the end of each day unless it was soiled in some way, and then inspected before reuse, meaning that we're going to look to see if there's any cracks in the shield, if the foam has lost its integrity, if the band is broken. If it is no longer intact in the way in which it's intended, it will then be disposed of, and a new face shield would be used at that time, and those are the guidelines that we received.
Any questions on that?
Thank you.
So I got a question. I do. So are we going to be reissuing these as they come out of use, or how is that going to be done?
Reverend Cummings, that's a good question, and we will have enough to purchase one for each student and one for each employee, but it will not be an indefinite supply. So we can have these available at our campuses, and so as a student runs through the masks that we have provided, masks or face shield, If they would like to purchase them in our school stores, we will have them available.
I do have a quick question as well. So in a real school day, you know, kid steps on their mask, anything can happen. Will there be any masks, you know, extra masks around or face shields, you know, to be able to take care of that situation in the moment?
We have masks, yes ma'am, Mr. Earl. We do have extra masks. We have quite a few extra masks that we will be able to provide, and you'll hear from Ms. Rohr on the school bus if a student comes onto the bus without having a mask. Not an indefinite supply, again, of face shields or masks, but we will certainly have enough to be able to help those students that need them and don't have them.
Okay, because there are some kids that will need face shields in lieu of masks.
So those are the changes that we have enacted to date. I would like to bring to the board's attention an additional proposed change. And so at an early work session that we had in June 3rd, you heard from Jody Phillips, and we talked about having quarter 3 for extracurricular activities and for athletics. And that allowed individuals to come on, or athletes to come on campus in small groups outside and small groups within the gymnasium, as long as they were kept isolated. The agreement with the school board is that quarter 3 would end on Monday, July 27th. That's next Monday. So having conversations with Mr. Phillips earlier this week, we came to the conclusion that we're not ready to move from quarter 3 to quarter 4. So what quarter 4 would mean is that our students would be able to participate in full contact activities such as football. So the recommendation to the school board is that we extend quarter 3 until we have a chance to come back and workshop this topic, which we would like to do next Thursday.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, board members, and
Wait a
that,
minute. We didn't hear nothing from the other ones. You heard from two.
Wheels are turning. What are other districts doing as far as this particular situation?
I'm going to ask Jody Phillips if he is in the audience. I know Jody Phillip is here, and ask him to address your question on that, Mr. Orr. Jody is well aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
And here on cue is Mr. Phillips.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I think I heard the question about other districts. Is that, okay. In a sense, if this doesn't answer your question, I'll follow up, but let me give you what I found out and kind of collected in the last day or two. When things happened Monday with the FHSA board meeting, and they went ahead and said you could start Monday, as Mr. Bionel mentioned, we're not prepared. So start looking around at what other districts are doing, and there's 27 districts in the state of Florida that have, if you count Leon, they only have 5, but 6 or more high schools in that 27. Represents 341 schools across the state. And as they were polled over the last couple of days, 2 of those 27 districts are going to allow students to begin more availability or practices and such on Monday, only 2 of them. So 25 of us had deemed, which represents 328 of those schools. Mm-hmm. Only 13 will start on Monday. Now, there are some districts out there of 1 school, 1 high school or 2 high school counties that are going to start Monday and begin their process. But 328 of us are not. And I would tell you, of that 328, at this point, I'm not aware of 1 of those that is starting prior to August 10th. That's the earliest. But we have already heard numerous districts that have already extended to September starts. So, is that?
It does. It answers my question. I'd love to see the list at some point of the 13 schools, I think you said, that are going ahead
I mean,
forward.
if you want me, it's Alachua and Bay are the 2 counties.
They're moving forward.
That are
Those
moving
are only
forward.
2 counties, Alachua and Bay.
That
Those
are,
are the only 2,
okay, that are not delaying.
correct.
Okay.
Now, again, that's counties that have 6 or more
high schools.
high
High
schools.
schools, right.
A lot of the 1 high school and 2 high school communities are moving forward on Monday.
and they're going to do what they're going to do. We have to keep safety in mind. However, you know, being a sports person myself, I think it's very important to present a level playing field, you know, for everyone. There's kids that depend on these scholarships. They also need to be kept alive to be able to go to college. So it's a balancing act. So that's why I just requested more information. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So when will that workshop be?
Next.
Thursday.
I know Alatra's not quite as large a district as we are, but, I mean, many of the small districts are opening up. I just hope that we do not regret this.
Well,
I hope that students, we don't lose students to getting into trouble or something happening while their life's up in the air, and they end up not being eligible for football because they get into some trouble because they're in this area, or be eligible for sports. And it comes down to causing serious consequences for them.
Ms. Stacy, they are
right.
working, they're practicing, but
Right,
in
but-
small groups, just not as the full football
Doing
team.
contact.
Right, but are they all coming to this? Everybody's coming like they're supposed to?
I'm not aware, I have not heard one complaint from our folks.
I've talked to some.
Yeah, I mean,
I've
I
talked
talk
to
to them
some, and
regularly.
most of the
And they're
coaches
coming.
have them on a schedule. They're supposed to do so many workouts, and,
Because they're coming and they're not, you know, thinking that we're not gonna follow through with the football program, and they're kind of giving up on us. If they're coming to what they're supposed to come to, that's fine.
Yes, ma'am.
but this doesn't hinder that. This doesn't prevent that at all. This just says that they won't go into the full contact until we have this workshop. Am I hearing it right, Mr. Phillips? That's all this is
So what
saying.
are we looking for with the workshop? Who's gonna convince us in a week that it's okay? I mean, what evidence are we looking for?
Two things that have come to fruition this week. One was a SMAC committee report out of the FHSAA, which is the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. That didn't get released until this Monday.
Okay.
And it is now on their agenda for their board meeting tonight to be reviewed.
Okay.
And also now today, as of this morning, we just received a FHSA Return to Participation Guide, Resources, and Fall Sports Consideration document that I have here.
Okay.
And that literally just became available.
Okay, so new
So,
information.
yes, ma'am.
Hit you. Okay.
All right, and I think the whole thing with this is so that we don't jump out there too far, and then FHSA says something, and then we got to revert. It's better for us to move as they're moving than to get too far ahead of them.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Okay.
Wait, we still ain't hearing nothing from the other board members. Just heard from me and Ms. McCall. So, Ms. Thor, Ms. King, Ms. Stacy, we need consensus.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm taking your recommendation.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
You're really
Thank you.
good now.
Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
You all know me, I'm Philip Leopard, I'm Executive Director over Support Services, and two of my areas are going to be here today to answer some requests that you all had to discuss this at a work session or a board meeting about what we're doing to clean both our facilities and what we're doing for as far as our buses and transportation. So today I've brought with me Carrie Cook, who is over all of our custodial and ground services for the district, and Becky Aurora is in the back, who is here from transportation. So you're going to hear from Becky in just a little bit. I want to share with you, you want me to use this? Okay. First of all, cleaning expectations. Kerry and his team and our whole division feels very strongly about providing the cleanest atmosphere for learning at all times. And all of my divisions, including technical services and facilities, do the same. We want to make sure we're providing the cleanest, safest atmosphere for learning to happen, not just for students, but also for our staff. So to do that, we have lots of best practices that are in place. We want our custodial staff specifically to be prepared to handle situations the best way they possibly can. and that goes through ongoing training and staff development. We're going to talk in just a little bit about some of that staff development and how, what some of the topics current topics that are being covered in that, so we'll be able to do a little more deeper dive into that. So custodial staff. I know you all have been getting a lot of questions. You've shared some of those with me that we've passed on. I've been replying to a lot of emails and questions as well as everyone on staff is, and it's really great that we're having this opportunity to be able to share some responses right now so that we can all be on the same page and ask questions. Staff assigned at every school. So you know the structure at our school sites. Every school has a head custodian that is the primary report contact for that school. They're the ones that have a lot of the direct contact with the school administrator and with Carrie's area coordinators and the division. And under the head custodian, we also have several custodians based on the size, the square footage, the size of that facility. So it could vary from a small school to a large high school as to how many custodians there are. But those assignments are done based on space that they would need to be able to clean. Typically, during the day, we have one custodian historically that has worked that we've labeled as a day custodian. They have a hybrid responsibility. They are responsible for cleaning up after breakfast, doing some cleaning around the school, bathrooms, things like that, and then helping with the lunch process, and in between there, doing some of the grounds responsibilities around the school to keep it beautified and up to speed. They also handle the immediate emergency items that the school needs to happen. Typically, towards the dismissal time of school, the rest of the custodial staff comes in and does a very thorough cleaning of the facility so that when everybody comes back the next day, it is completely sanitized and cleaned. It is cleaned and disinfected by the next day when they return. However, with the current concerns and the things that we've been hearing and the understandings as far as what CDC and our health department, we have decided that we need to make some adjustment to our schedules to be able to accommodate perceptions and needs that we have at these facilities. So Carrie is working to adjust depending on the size of the school and the number of custodians there. There's going to be some shifting of schedules. Not that they're all going to start at 7 o'clock in the morning when the first guy comes up to open, but staggered throughout the day that we will have additional custodial staff assigned when students and staff are present to be able to help with the ongoing cleaning and additional responsibilities that we're asking them to pick up. So we're going to have more visibility and more hands on deck during the school day, but we still have some evening custodians that are going to try and pick up their regular responsibilities at night. All of our staff are given the appropriate PPE that they need in order to do cleaning and responding to those types of situations. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But we've come to realize, and I think the emails and the phone calls and the communication we have, especially from our staff, is that this is a collective effort. We have a limited number of actual staff that are working, but we know that a lot of our teachers and non-instruction administrators have said, hey, what can I do to help in my room? What can I do to help keep things, we all have different levels of what we believe needs to be cleaned. So Carrie and his group have made arrangements that we are going to provide every classroom with some of the cleaning product, which we're going to talk about in a second, and they have the paper towels and the things in order to perform that cleaning function. And any staff member that still feels that they have a need, we're going to accommodate that as well. So everyone will have access to their own product to be able to clean, and we're going to train them on that. One other thing that we're doing for assurances, we want to make sure that the new things we've put in place above and beyond their regular duties are being done. So Kerry and his team are working on a monitoring checklist that's going to be put in place in our schools. His head custodian will be the point person at each school to oversee that. It'll be able to be reviewed by Kerry's team, by the school administrator, by myself, anybody that wants to come in and see it. But it's going to do two things. It's going to guide the custodians that are on duty at any time as to what the expectations they have to be able to do cleaning, sanitizing, revisiting, things like that. So we know that they know and remember what they need to do, but also it'll help keep a record that it was done. So it's going to have a twofold benefit for that. A little bit of custodial protocols. We do follow what the Department of Health tells us to do and the Centers for Disease Control recommendations. They are guiding forces in what we are implementing as far as custodial. Our job is to do the best job with cleaning and disinfecting that we possibly can, and know that that is ongoing and going to be more visibly ongoing each and every day. One of those is the next section about hand sanitizers and dispensers. I've gotten lots of questions about those. We are making sure, Carrie's team will be watching those hand sanitizer dispensers to make sure that they are filled. And if we don't have that product available, there will be bottle pumps available to go in those rooms so that everyone has access to sanitizer as they need, plus the cleaning product that we'll talk about in just a second. Custodians are going to clean and disinfect the whole facility each and every day, which they've done usually in the evening when people haven't been able to see it going on. But they're going to be doing it throughout the day, and they're going to be doing it between groups, like when they change classes and when they have moved through the cafeteria and those types of things as frequently as they possibly can make that happen. That's going to include wiping down of water dispensers. The group bathrooms, they're going to frequently go into the bathrooms and re-sanitize. All locations that we use for feeding, whether it's going to be in classrooms or in the cafeteria, and especially touch points. Touch points like doorknobs, light switches, push bars on doors, all of those things. I was talking to Carrie, and we're basically, custodians are going to have sanitizer and rags with them at all times. Basically, that's going to be their additional job in what they're doing at all times, which they have been doing, but this is going to be even more intense. So next slide. Disinfecting. I told you we'd talk a little bit about the products that we use. We have been very diligent in trying to find what we believe to be the best product, instead of products, the product that can cover the most needs in our school and have the highest effectiveness with our cleaning and disinfecting without having multiple chemicals available on a site. And last year, we switched district-wide to this product called Proxy H-Docs, which you may have heard the name before. It is a hospital-grade peroxide-based cleaner that has no residue and has absolutely no odor. And it is a highly effective product, especially in situations where we have students like schools. So we have found this to be a wonderful product because it doesn't leave residue. We don't have a risk of anybody ingesting it, that sort of thing. It is available to staff, like I mentioned. We're going to let them have it in their classrooms. We're going to let any space that needs to have some, Carrie's going to provide it, and they're going to refill that as it needs to make sure that we are always armed with this product that we need. One of the benefits of this product is we know that PPE, different levels of PPE, usually are dictated by the chemicals that are used. But this is such a safe chemical, it does not require any additional PPE than what our resolution may already be requiring of our staff and students. And it's highly effective with killing. It's got one of the highest kill rates out there. Another thing I mentioned was ongoing training of our custodial staff. And we want to give you a little backdoor knowledge on this. We have always felt that current training, current cleaning methods are a priority because things can make your job more effective, tools, different things that they have. We decided to shift and move to this Academy of Cleaning Excellence that has an online portion, so our staff and custodians on their free time at work, or not free time, but when they have time or downtime or been assigned by their head custodian, they actually go there and take different trainings. There are 2 of these trainings that we are requiring all of our custodial staff to take, and they're new trainings. Deep cleaning, decontamination of educational facilities so that we know that everybody's on the same page and know that our head and area coordinators will be debriefing and making it specific for their site. And COVID-19 Stay Safe Frontline Custodian Knowledge. So these are very timely trainings that we are providing to our custodians, and we'll be checking in and guiding them at their specific facilities so that they are equipped and understand the importance of regular visits, regular wipe downs, visit the gang bathrooms, visit the cafeteria, and do this and be highly visible as well.
Mr. Lippert, may I ask a question?
Sure.
I know we still have some schools that we have a contract with a custodial business.
Yes.
So are they going to be under exactly the same training requirements, the same? I'm a little
Chemicals,
concerned
same
about
protocols.
that.
Yes.
I'm deferring to Mr. Cook.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
right now, we still have four that are underneath contract. We take those back in October, so I gotta get through
Oh, we
one.
do take them back in October?
Yes, ma'am. So I gotta get through 1 month of September. They will go through on-hands training with us. I've got it set up, and the dilution control systems are ordered. They'll have our chemical in their schools before the start of school. I'll personally go out and train each one of their staff. They have a lot of Spanish-speaking staff, so I'll bring one of my coordinators that can translate, and we'll make sure the same guidelines that we have, I'm gonna have them follow. I'm gonna get with them. They're gonna have to not only have night staff, we supply a day guy at each site, a day custodian, but I'll also require them to bring one in just like we do, or two, depending on the size of the facility. Westport's large school, 400,000 square feet. Right now, they have 4 day guys. We'll probably shift into about 6. But
That,
we'll make sure, but I'm going ahead because I got to already take it over in October, so we're going to get all our machines in and
okay.
make sure we're ready to roll.
So they're going, for the record, they're gonna have the same protocols as MCPS staff and the same chemicals that our staff has.
And training, and they will go
And
through
training.
training.
Yep, we'll put them through the same training.
Okay, that was a concern. Thank you.
It's a great question, and we were prepared because we knew that that was something in October that we were ready to take over as well. So it's a win-win for the students and staff. We're happy to be able to share that. So next slide, notification of illness. If we are made aware, say by the Department of Health or someone, that there's an issue within a specific classroom, this is how we are going to deal with it immediately, which is obviously through CDC recommendation. Carrie's group would go in with their appropriate PPE, and we have sprayers. Do you see the picture on the bottom of this slide? These are the sprayers that we have, and have some more on order as well through the grants, that allow us to use peroxy HDOX to be able to spray like an atomizer into the atmosphere. So immediately when the room is vacated, they go in and they spray and atomize the entire classroom or the entire space, and they seal it off so that that product has time to kill any and everything in every crack and crevice in that room. And then it stays that way overnight, or at least later into the evening when the rest of the custodial staff can come in. We know that the life of any virus within that space, once peroxy HDOX is out, should not exceed 5 minutes in any respect. So it's got a, what's it called? Dwell time of less than 5 minutes with peroxy HDOX. So it's a highly effective product for that. So we spray the area, seal it off. When they come back and do a very thorough cleaning and disinfecting after that, then we'll inspect and make sure that it's ready to be reopened for use at the school.
Got a question?
Sure.
Who does that inspection?
The head custodian or the area coordinators, I believe.
Yes, it'd be the head custodian trained. We also have some custodians that are trained. Before we get started, we're going to have more and more in every school trained.
So after the room has been contaminated,
Right.
I'm just trying to visualize this. If the room has been contaminated, that room will be cleared. You're saying that somebody's going to come in with this sprayer and mist the room or fog the room or whatever you call it. And then there'll be somebody else differently than the person that fogged it that's going to come back and check off and say it's clear.
Yes, sir.
Is it going to be some documentation, some type of documentation that the principal can see the next day?
Yes, sir.
Showing that this is
We're actually
happening?
going to seal the door like we did whenever we left the first time. We put blue tape on it, said this room has been cleaned, disinfected.
That's going to be standard. So if I go from school on the west side of the county to a school on the east side of the county, I'll see the same thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many of these sprayers do we have? And how many per school do we have?
We got a lot of different Luckily, we got a lot of different equipment in our arsenal right now. I've got 6 of the Victory backpack sprayers, probably about 4 of the Victory handheld, plus I got 142 of the ones you see there on order that should be here before school starts.
You said on order.
Sir?
On order, you said on order.
On order.
I asked a question back in March.
How many do I have now?
Hold on. I asked a question back in March, were our schools done? Because they were supposed to have been done when we shut down. So now you're saying that.
Well,
that's on order.
there's 2 different ways that you can physically disinfect a room or sanitize. During that point in time, you can also use 2.5 gallon sprayers and miss a whole room. So there's multiple ways you can do it. It was done in March doing that way. We are using some sprayers now that are 2.5 gallon sprayers, so the chemicals mixed in.
But we need this extra time to get the stuff in so we can make sure these schools are right.
I'll be honest with you, I think we're fine. We can go and use 2.5 gallon sprayers.
How many of them we have?
We got them at every site.
Okay.
I have some I can loan them.
We have plenty. We got a pretty
I mean,
good.
is the 2.5 gallon sprayer going to miss the room the same way? Is it going to fog the room the
Well-
same way where it covers? Because from my understanding, this sprayer is supposed to hit all of the touch points.
That's what you're looking for. You're looking for hidden touch points. You're not going to see anybody in Central Florida going in and fogging rooms, okay? Because most of the ones like you've seen on TV when they're outside, usually that's poison they put in there when they're outside.
Right.
That's why you see them wearing the
Hazmat suits.
the hazmat suit and the mask. What we're doing is more environmentally safe for our students and for the staff. Does the same thing. I can go in with a 2.5 gallon sprayer, spray this whole room down, let it dwell for 5 minutes and dry, and it's killed anything on it. This HDOX product that you're seeing is probably one of the best out there. Most chemicals that are out there now has a 10-minute dwell time.
I just want our staff to know and our parents to know that if there's a contaminated room, that it's going to be properly cleaned before anybody goes back into it. I want them to know that those classrooms are properly cleaned and disinfected before anybody, teachers or students, return in August.
Yes, sir.
That's what I need to know.
I think we're in good shape.
Okay, and there's going to be a sign-off sheet. Okay.
I have a question and a comment too. This is a great conversation to be having. It's foundational to the success of mitigating risk to reopen our schools and providing the reassurance and confidence to our community, that we've got this foundational base covered. So I thank you for your level of detail. Now, it might be because the picture is small or my eyes are old or both, but I'm thinking that we've got some pretty large open spaces in our schools, and are there other
Yes, we have.
that are much bigger? Because we want to be able to get this, knock it out.
For the cafeteria. and
Right.
gymnasium.
Yeah, we have backpack sprayers. Like I said, we could always, when this started in March, what people's got to understand, there's a supply issue problem.
Yes.
The Victory sprayers that I've got, which are very good, are backpack, and the reason we went to this type of sprayer is because it's made in the USA. The batteries on it I can get from Home Depot. It's got rebuild kits you can order from Home Depot, things like that. The Victory sprayers that you see people getting with the supply chain, and it's just like hand sanitizer. Some hand sanitizer companies have orders out for 3 years. That's why you're just getting small amounts here and there. But let me get back to my point. Victory sprayers, which are great sprayers, but they're made in China. I've been waiting on a battery since March. Okay, so the supply chain is not there for parts if they go down, and plus in order to get them. This unit you see right here, and it looks small, but you can walk through very fast with them. I've done MTI when we had something over there, we thawed over during March, and we walked through very quickly. This is something that's made in the USA. I can get parts, I can fix. We can keep it for years instead of just getting something from China that once it breaks, you're waiting on parts maybe 6 months to 7. I feel very comfortable with using, if we have to, going through with 2.5 gallon sprayers. We have them in all schools. You want to mist. You want to hit tabletops. You want to hit touch points. You don't go in there and just turn something on and let it fog the whole room. Not saying that's not out there, we wouldn't be able to afford it, because you'd have to move it from room to room,
I would be
each
concerned
individual
about
units.
our custodians' health.
Like I said, this is,
Something like that.
this is a, right, and what we're using is a very safe product. All of Central Florida, we've had it for about a year and a half now. When I first got here, we had 7, 8 different chemicals. In Custodial, we got some longevity people, but I'll just be honest, it's a low-paying job. We start out at 1035, so you always have people coming in reaching for something higher. And it took me about 2 years, because I'd kind of get mad and upset because, you'd have every salesman come in, they'd want to sell you 7 different chemicals to clean 7 different things. So after about 2 years, finally, I found one chemical that will do everything that we needed to do in a school. We may only have to carry 1 or 2 other as far as a degreaser or something like that, but one thing about it, it's very safe, and it's got the kill claim from the EPA, the N list, and I feel very comfortable using it.
And this level of detail is
mean,
really, really important to get out
I
there.
mean, it's like anything you see on TV with, China out there with people with masks on and they're fogging and doing from the air. A lot of that's poison they got in there. We don't want our people getting into that.
No,
But will we have the resources as far as the manpower to do all of this? We're in summer school, and I'm seeing where 2 and 3 kids are leaving schools daily, and those rooms are having to be done. Once school starts, and if you got several, are we gonna have enough staff on hand throughout the day to be cleaning, as you're saying, these high touch point areas, as well as dealing with the classroom, as well as all these other things?
Well, I'll start with one good point. These last 4 schools will have all the contracted schools back in-house. I think when me and Ms. Stacy was here, and I've been around for a long time, I think at one time we had 18. So we've been taking them back slowly every year. As far as staffing goes, the way we staff and the way most people that I've talked to in Central Florida staff is we staff by like 25,000 square feet per custodian.
Okay.
So if you got 100,000 square foot school, that's usually 1 on the day and 3 at night. I'm not gonna tell you it's not gonna be a challenge, but we're gonna have to start out, like you said, this is very fluid. We do not know how long this is gonna last. Me and Phillips talked yesterday. Right now, this is a short-term plan, but I have got to look what's gonna happen in the next few months after Christmas, maybe into the spring. Hopefully it don't last that long. But what you're gonna see is probably Phillips gonna come back, and we're gonna have a long-term plan, which is probably gonna be, if we're still in this, we're gonna have to add staff. I think we can handle it now. But if it stays like it is and evolves with what you gotta understand, there's routine cleaning and there's supplemental cleaning. You clean your house like every weekend, and then you figure out sometime I'm gonna do spring cleaning. We have to do spring cleaning every day now. That's not what we are staffed to do. We're staffed to do routine. Okay, so we can do it.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a quick question. I don't want to interrupt. I didn't want to interrupt, but I need to. You jumped on something I was about to go to, because I'm hearing I've heard 3 different types of language when in referring to cleaning. I've heard, since all of this started, I've heard deep cleaned, I've heard sanitized, and I've heard cleaned.
Okay.
Did y'all hear those since we started this?
This is
Not this morning, but since COVID.
This is what
Explain to us the difference between the 3.
okay, and if I have to, I got an expert out there, but I'll go. I have trying to get everybody to just go to cleaning and disinfecting. That's what we do. Sanitizing does not clean everything. Disinfecting does. So it's clean and it's disinfect. Disinfect, the chemical that we're giving the teachers, is very safe. You don't have to use any PPE. You can spray your desk down, wipe it down with a rag. It's best for them. The guidance that I'm giving the principals and my staff to train them, if they have time, when the student leaves, is to just miss the desk. That gives it a 5-minute dwell time. But there's 2 actual products on this, okay? There's a green bottle and a red bottle. The teachers are gonna get the red bottle. The red bottle is a highly concentrated. It's 70 cents a bottle. You can't go buy anything out there that's gonna cost you 70 cents, and I can refill them. The green is the cleaner, that my people use. You gotta clean the surface, then you gotta disinfect it with the red. I'm gonna give the teachers a red. They can, it's a cleaner and a disinfectant, it just costs more money. Yeah, there's just a dilution difference, all it is. The green's a lower dilution and the red's a higher, got more chemical in it.
I just,
Not as diluted.
So what's a deep clean? What's a deep clean?
Supplemental, spring cleaning, you gotta touch everything. You know, usually whenever you do custodial, and they've done studies, and it's like I talk about long-term, what your goal is long-term. The studies, when you go in and you do a deep clean or a supplemental clean, what we're having to do now, take your elementary schools, your labor has went up a third. What that means is, long-term, that could be 1 or 2 bodies added just to elementary. You get in high school and middle, it could go to 3 to 4, because you're physically having to do stuff that you may skip a day. You may skip 2 days normally doing. Routine cleaning normally used to be, you'd go in there and check the carpet. If it wasn't bad, you'd clean the bathroom, empty the garbage, wipe down where you needed, and walked on. Now we're having to go in and hit every desk every day, every touch point, which slows the custodians down. You got to figure, you got 25, 30,000 square feet, take 200,000, divide it into that. You know, some people's doing 16 houses in a night plus bathrooms. Do that day in and day out. So we can do it in the start, but if this continues, we're going to have to, I'm already projecting and talking to Philip about how we're going to work this long term.
Yeah.
That's what we need in the beginning for, if the teachers will help us out, the ones that will. I think we can get through this and we can get started.
Do we have documentation that every school has been deep cleaned? And seeing that we're in summer school now,
Yeah,
will they be deep cleaned again before school start?
We're going through right now and we'll be done. 99.9% of my schools are done for summer cleaning. We're going back through now doing deep class, wiping down desks, things like that, light switches. Now, we're also having to, you know, you got 5, 6 people at a school, we're also moving furniture. I mean, we're shifting furniture daily, you know, based on making sure we got social distancing, things like that. My people are busy. We'll make sure that they are deep cleaned before the kids come back. That's going to be something that's ongoing. You're not just going to do it for the start of school. It's going to have to be done daily.
well, it's something you do anyway, because it takes care of the dust issues for allergy kids and mold, and you see what's going on. Deep cleaning's not what this virus, is not gonna keep a kid from getting the virus. What you're doing is gonna protect children from the virus. The deep cleaning is just something you do.
It is.
Wax the floors and all that kind of stuff.
Carpets, waxing, but, you know, the point I wanted to make is they're gonna be required to do more than they have done in the past. And it is gonna be, you know, in a certain point in time, you're gonna have to increase your labor.
Right. Mr. Cook, it'll also be really helpful to know what we all can do from the top all the way to from the beginning to the end. Every person that is going to be spending time in a school, in my mind, has a level of responsibility to support this effort.
Absolutely.
So the details of what we can do as individuals to support.
I can send something out to the principals, I mean, if I could get the teachers just to help.
Because cleanliness is a life skill, let's face it, and now is a great time for kids to
If I
learn
can
that.
just get the help done of wiping down the desks and
I've
the
heard from a
computer
lot of
stations
teachers that
and
they
things
are
like that,
very willing.
that would really help us out
Yes,
and
put
save us
it
a
on a
lot of
schedule
time.
and,
Because you consider, when I
already doing it.
start shifting, when we start shifting bodies, that's more that the night crew is gonna have to pick up.
right,
And you can take a list, it's very easy to do, square footage of each school divided by 25,000. And that's what the staff that we have. But I think we'll be in good shape, but like Ms. King and y'all said, it's a family. Everybody's gonna have to help us. I get a lot of help from Jody, because I'm also help Jody in athletics. I help Becky in the buses as far as getting them what they need. Training to make sure the kids are safe when they come in and do athletics, things like that. I mean, we have, one thing that I hear, and it's good that you get to see some of this ongoing training that we do, because you probably think we don't do any. Well, we've got our own Marion County website with training modules, things like that. Each coordinator met with their heads. We're gonna meet with all our supervisor staff this week and next. They're going to do the same thing. We'll hit that before school starts again to cover all these points. The board, Teresa, and everybody, Phillips, has been very good about getting the equipment that my people need throughout the years. And we plan and we try to buy things that we'll have for years to come. That's why I mentioned a little bit about the sprayers. You know, I think, well, you can do the same thing with a 2.5 gallon pump sprayer.
This might help us during
These sprayers here I can take and it's like spraying a car. I can hit that and I know everything's covered. Okay, and I can keep walking. We got backpacks, we got things like that.
Right now, we're moving them around from facility to facility while we're waiting for some of those orders to come in. We've been working from a small amount to a larger amount, so.
I got another question based on one of those slides I saw.
I have a collective effort up there because we're all talking about the collective effort, so.
When you talk right there, start right there. So, scenario, kid comes to school, first period class, gets sick, what happens from there? If the room is gonna be closed off,
Actually, the administrator will close that room down. And then they'll get a hold of me.
okay, stop from this script. I'm going to Mark now.
We're gonna address that.
Hold on, I'm going to Mark. Where did that classroom go?
The administrator will have to find a supplemental room, and that could be the cafeteria, it could be the media center, it could be an open classroom.
Okay.
So that classroom will be closed down, and Andrea's gonna get into this in a little bit. When the health clinic sees a trend developing out of a particular classroom, that's our trigger point. That's our trigger point to contact the health department. That's our trigger point to close down the classroom and physically move that classroom to another location on campus.
Because that class is gonna be closed for the rest of the day.
Correct.
It'll be,
Because that's the worst thing I can hear, that we as board members could hear, is that kids got sick in the classroom and they remained in that classroom all day.
Stayed in there.
Yeah, and we kept them in there all day. That would be horrible to hear that.
Correct.
Okay,
We're gonna get to that in just a second, I
okay,
promise.
thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, good job.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
So we want to talk, there were some related items, which one of these is what you just brought up, Reverend Cummings. But one of the things that I've been asked a lot, and I know some of you have, because you've passed on the emails to me, is about air scrubbers, UV light, all that sort of thing. Is our air being conditioned for people to have good, fresh air? I want to assure you, I've talked to my HVAC department under technical services. All of our units are up and functioning. We're replacing a couple units right now in the process. But one of the huge benefits that we have at Marion County Public Schools is that every HVAC system in our district is all fresh air. They bring in, they cycle out the stale air with fresh air continually. It is not a contained system like you might have somewhere else. This is a fresh air system, whether it's a whole building-wide system or a smaller system, they're all fresh air capable. And our technical services department regularly has a schedule for replacing the filtering on those as well. We've always made that a huge priority because we want the health of our students and our staff to be good so that they can be there to learn and to work. So it's a high importance and always has been. So that's the crux of that. Another thing we've had a lot of questions about is about the health clinic and the operation of the health clinic. So we've asked Andrea to come up and speak to a few points there.
Hi again. So as far as health clinics are concerned, the plan for the school year is much like what we're doing now during the summer. All schools are asked to designate an isolation area and develop a plan for notification and transport of students showing signs of illness. That plan is going to vary from school to school because not every school is set up the same and not every school houses the same population of students. The isolation area may be a room, a classroom, a conference room that's been turned into the isolation area to house the student or students, or the clinic itself may become the isolation area and the routine clinic duties are handed over to one of the minimum of two assigned clinic backups for them to give scheduled medications and handle any first aid. Also going to ask for some classroom management as far as if I have a paper cut, is it necessary to send a student to the clinic? Can they wash their hands in the classroom and put on a Band-Aid, things like that? So that we're not overwhelming our clinics with things that can be handled that are minor. The principal, while developing their plan, is going to collaborate with myself, the school nurses, the Department of Health, their area director, to make sure that they have a plan in place for their school for the safe isolation and transport of students. If a student is in the classroom, that school will have developed their plan for notification. So student is in the classroom, complains that they're ill, vomits, and whatever symptom of illness they show, they're going to call the designated person, whether they call directly to the clinic to let them know of the student so that the HCA can prepare, or call the front desk so that that person can arrange for the transport. We're not going to want elementary students to come down in the buddy system anymore, so that we're not exposing another child. So an adult would have to retrieve the child if warranted by age, developmental level, the stability of the student based on the illness the signs that they're showing at the time. Once the student, sorry, I'm creeping down. Once the student leaves the classroom, the area where they've been should be disinfected. That's where the orange spray bottles come in and cleaning that area. The student, when they arrive in the clinic, the student is going to be wearing a mask because it's mandated for us to be wearing in the hallways. The HCA, to receive the student, is going to don the appropriate PPE based on the guidelines we provide for them. They're going to evaluate the student, the signs that they're showing. They're going to call to notify their nurse at the Department of Health because we're tracking all of this information. And they're going to call the parent and notify them for pickup. The parent is provided with the DOH exclusion guidelines that we went over last week, which are subject to change. Please note, they've already changed after they were given to us the first time, and there's new CDC recommendations that started coming out yesterday. So what we do could change throughout the school year based on the new research and the guidelines they provide us. But for now, that student is excluded from school for 10 days since that symptom appeared, based upon the parent's decision to have them clinically evaluated, to have them tested, or to do neither one and just keep them home until they've been free of fever for at least 72 hours. All of their symptoms have improved, and it's been at least 10 days since the start of their symptoms. The clinic itself will be cleaned.
If they get tested negative, they don't have to stay home 10 days.
We haven't received that guidance yet. Currently, it is still 10 days.
Still 10 days.
The Department of Health locally is communicating with the State Department of Health to try to see if we can have some leniency in that to allow. But as of right now, it stands.
Clinically says no.
Say that one more
But if
time.
the doctor clinically, because there is the other path.
So if you go to the doctor
He says
and you have allergies, and the doctor writes a note saying,
it's not.
this student has allergies, these symptoms are of such, they are safe to return to school on this date, the parent can provide that note and they come back.
And not have to stay out 10 days.
Correct. And that's all on the guidelines that the parents receive on the back of their letter. The clinic is cleaned in between students. If there are more than one student who are exhibiting symptoms in the clinic, they will be spaced at least 6 feet apart, and everybody will be wearing masks. Cleaned in between students. And then at the close of the day, the custodial staff comes in and does a thorough cleaning.
You have some schools where the clinic is like in the front office. How's that gonna?
So, and that's where the part where we're gonna have to get together and brainstorm to see how that is. One school in particular called and we worked out, they have a small clinic. So they can't really house more than one student if it comes to that. And it's quite possible. This week alone, we've sent home more than 20 kids with signs of illness. So they made a plan that the conference room off of the principal's office, which is much larger, they're setting that up as their isolation area. Their backup is going to go to the classroom to administer scheduled medications, and then they're going to have somebody there in the clinic also to provide first aid as needed. So it's just working together, because that's going to be the biggest piece, is everybody working together to find the solution that works for that population and for the way that school is set up.
And is there gonna be someone that's gonna go to the clinic and disinfect, clean? Is that the health clinician?
So the HCA themselves, in between students, will wipe down all of the surfaces and clean, and then nightly custodial staff comes in and does the thorough cleaning of the clinic.
So they'll have the same cleaning material as the
Correct,
teachers?
correct, that peroxy H-Docs.
Okay, I have a question for her.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Landers, when he was here, said that because we do have health department nurses, that possibly the nurses could go do the COVID test right there on the student on campus. And I guess then the parent take them home or whatever, but we could do the test and that
Well,
he
there's
said,
a lot of factors that go in before that has not, since that statement, a plan has not
heard
been
anything
followed
since
through.
that statement.
No, nothing's been put in place, and to test a student, we would need written parental consent.
And we talked about getting that ahead
Yeah,
of time.
and we only have 8 of the schools that we have that actually have a nurse
Right, so
on campus. The rest of our schools do not have nurses. We have a group of nurses that cover 6 to 8 schools apiece, so there's not a nurse on the majority of our school campuses.
But could the nurse go to that
Possibly,
school?
depending
You
on,
know, travel to a school that doesn't have a nurse just to do a COVID test and then the child goes home with their parents?
there's possibilities for things to be worked out, but that would have to be coordinated
So
with the
nothing's
Department
really
of Health.
happened since our last meeting then?
Correct.
That's
Not for the
not
COVID
encouraging.
testing at the school level,
Not
no.
encouraging. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
I have a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Almost. And this is a health and safety concern, and it reminds me of our school violence concerns. You know, kids had to be taught that there are certain things that you don't do, there are certain things that you don't say, because the implications of really affecting the continuity of the educational process are really big here, with kids showing up complaining of signs and symptoms and turning everything upside down. So it would be helpful to get some guidance from the health department about what types of educational materials are available that teachers can use, that parents can have at home, so the kids can be prepped and know exactly what the expectations are for when you're not feeling well. Obviously, if a kid's not feeling well, we want to know that. But we don't need anybody crying wolf either.
Correct.
Okay.
And I really honestly feel that's where all of this starts at home. So us as parents, talking to our children, teaching them how to wash your hands, enforcing at home the behavior of wearing a mask, talking about symptoms and feeling ill and when to go to the clinic, especially if we have a student who does that often and we know we get calls all the time for avoidance reasons, and really having that conversation with your child. And we rely a lot upon parents to help us with those conversations as well. But I can look into what I can get for
Educational
handout
materials.
material as
Okay,
well.
great, thank you.
What I'm hearing, this is gonna have to be a real collaborative effort from parents, the teachers, to every person looking at this kid, because we want to, if a kid's sick, we want them to come and let us know so we can get them there. We don't want kids just crying wolf.
Milk system.
Yeah, but we also don't want parents saying, you better sit there in school and take it all day if they're sick, if they're legitimately sick. So it has to be that all of us got to be educated on this one and looking for signs. Because if the kid's sitting there and you seeing them, they're not right, the teachers need to do something. Or somebody, but I don't care who it is, somebody need to do something and not just have that kid sit there because the kid's afraid to say that they're sick because they don't have anybody to come pick them up at that time. So we need to be, it has to be a collaborative effort.
Well, Mr. Cummings, what I'm concerned about is we asked the health department like a couple of questions about having the school nurses, swab. And we asked about, and he said there possibly he could get the quick test done for our students. That's been a week. This is a sense of urgency.
Testing, as far as them going, we have been,
Right.
we've been doing that. So
Okay.
as it stands, if I have a call with a student with symptoms and the parent wants to get tested, if they call the Department of Health, they identify themselves as a student who's been excluded from school. They're getting offered same day or next day testing depending on the time of day. And then they're sending that out to the state lab so that you have a 24 to 48 hour turnaround.
And so that's.
So they're not coming to them, but we
That
are
has happened.
expediting
That's
their
going to
testing.
continue.
Yes.
Yes,
Looks like.
yes.
Okay. So our question, so some parents with transportation problems and getting down to the health department, would you please find out if our health department nurse is in our school? If a school gets a call that does not have a health department nurse, can that health department nurse take her swab that child as the parent's taking the child out the door home?
That's something we'll have to work through because the nurses are the school nurses, so they do have other responsibilities as well for the students at those other schools and are scheduled for trainings and all of the things that we do throughout the normal school year.
Well, we might, as a school board, need to look at staffing a floating nurse or something like that, you know.
Right. No, and these are all things
might
that we
need.
can continue to explore.
Or a backup person that can continue to give scheduled medications and so on, but that it frees up the person that has the licensure to do the swabbing and getting those consents out to parents ahead of time. That's the kind of thing, all of those little details is what's going to maintain educational continuity. This is probably the reason why a lot of districts across the nation have already called it and are not bringing kids back on campus until, you know, after the first semester. Because to do this right, that's the level of detail that it takes. So I'm very appreciative of all of the hard work that everyone's putting in and the attention to detail, because it's all about mitigating risk and maintaining the continuity of the education.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons.
So one other thing that thank you very much, Andrea, is we've had a lot of questions about after-school program. In fact, I've heard you all bring it up before. Marion after-school programmer is called MAPS this year, or has in the past. They are going to be trained on the cleaning and disinfecting processes by Custodial. So they're going to be following the exact same process and procedures that our regular custodial staff and teachers and staff members would be trained in. And as far as how they're going to handle the medication, the clinic, there's the things that would fall under Andrea's health clinic assistance. She's going to be providing that training through the health department as well for them. So it's just going to be an extension of what's already being done in the school. So it's not going to be its own separate entity. It's just a part of us. MAPS is us. So with that said, that kind of is the facility end of it, but I have Becky Rora here to share with you what we are putting in place as far as transportation and cleaning goes as well. So, you want me to do this or you want to?
Good morning, Dr. Gullett, Chair Cummings, and board members.
Morning.
Most of you know me, I'm Rebecca Rohr, Director of Transportation. And I'm here before you so that I can share transportation plan as it relates to what we're dealing with today. Our bus drivers currently and bus aides are responsible and hold duties that include cleaning and sanitizing or disinfecting our bus currently, but that's a routine built into their day. What we're looking at and what we have explored and will implement is the supplement of cleaning. What does it look like? The increasing of cleaning throughout the day and caring for our students as we transport them back and forth to school. So let me take this moment just to take you on a bus ride and show you what a day on the bus will look like.
Yay! The wheels on the bus.
So when the bus arrives at the bus stop, and as the students board, the driver and our bus aide will greet the students and then visually assess them and they're looking to see what's different about that child once they get to know them. Do they look ill this morning? Do they have very red eyes, runny nose? Just a quick visual assessment. They're not experts, they're not doctors, but they know their children. Trust me, they tell me a lot that they know their children.
I know my kids.
So when they identify students that are not wearing any type of face covering, they will provide them a mask that we are supplying, and hand sanitizer will be available and provided to them upon entry and throughout the ride when needed. So they have those hand sanitizer there. So how are we boarding those children when they get on? What we're going to request them to do is start from the back of the bus to board and work their way forward. That prevents all the passing by each other throughout the morning ride and boarding in the afternoon. Also, what we would do, we like to keep our little tiny tots up front. So we would try, and we're working on that as our routers are evaluating and adjusting ridership currently, to try to keep that front seat on both sides available for ill students, for someone who are choosing not to wear the face mask. But the second row back in the first 2 or 3, usually we only need about 3 or 4 for the little ones. We try to keep them up front. To try and give some sense of security for our students and for our parents, we will allow the siblings and those who reside in the same household to sit together. That will look different for our bus drivers because that's typically not how we do it. We usually keep the male and female separate, but they reside together. They're siblings. So we will allow that on the bus. So I mentioned about students sitting back, starting from the back and moving forward, those in the same household. So now we take our bus ride and we arrive on campus. Once we arrive on campus, transportation staff will work with the school officials following the campus procedures as it relates to social distancing and maintaining cleanliness. Next slide, please. To ensure that the students are unloaded in a fashion that is conducive with keeping them safe. So we will need to work closely with school officials in doing that. Now we've offloaded our first load of students safely on campus. So once on campus, bus drivers who serve multiple schools now will have a new type of duty from what they're routinely used to. So once they offload those students, now they need to disinfect those high-touch areas on the bus. We're preparing for our next run for those who have multiple runs. So when I'm talking about high-touch areas, we're talking about those handrails, the back of the seats. If you watch a child, or if you yourself board a bus and you have the tendency to grab the top of that seat. So we're going to ensure that they hit those high-touch areas, spray that bus down with the disinfectant so that we can attack that disease of any type before moving on to load our other students. What we've included in their daily requirement of pre-trip is a checklist. Drivers are already used to doing the state-required pre-trip of their bus, ensuring that the bus is in operable condition and that they have all what is required for that day's run. And that's in the morning before they leave and in the afternoon before they head out to the school to pick up their children. So an added piece will be put there. And that added piece is going to be a checklist or a monitoring list that will help them to remember to get all the PPE that we're going to provide for them for the safe of themselves and for the students. And the PPE includes the gloves, the mask, disinfectant solution. We will supply cleaning cloths and or paper towels, whatever we have at that time, so that they can sufficiently do their job and help us to battle this disease. So that's an added duty for them before they go out on their afternoon run. And this will be housed with our pre-trip information. We're required by state to keep those in on every bus. It's done daily, morning and afternoon, and then a post-trip is done. So that will always be readily accessible if we should need to pull the log to ensure that everything was done. At the end of the day, when they get back to the compound, it's critical that our buses be thoroughly cleaned and disinfected for the next morning. It's important at the end of the day that the drivers are supplied and our training will be given to us by Custodial Services, Mr. Cook and his team, for all of my staff so that we can assist the drivers in ensuring that at the end of each day, all of their buses are cleaned. They do their daily routine of sweeping, of removing items that have been left behind, of getting all the trash and ready for another clean ride the next day. And it's good that we do that at the end of the day because it allows more time. And when they get there in the morning, they're not scrambling in the dark to do any of that. We're ready to ensure we have our PPE and roll to pick up our students. Next slide, please. So what happens in transportation when we receive notification of illness? So immediately that bus is removed from service, and it will remain out of service for 24 hours. The bus will receive intensive cleaning, thorough cleaning wipe down, and then disinfected. We're using the same product, which we have experienced and had the opportunity to use this product in the past since it's been purchased, and I'm a fan of it. It's easy to use. I can use it. I kind of like doing the backpack because I look like the mutant Ninja Turtle. So it's really, and what's unique about it, Ms. Reverend Cummings, I know you were concerned, and I hear you. But what's unique about this solution is, yes, you can put it in that big fancy backpack, but you can also put it in the sprayer. You can also put it in a sprayer bottle that looks like what you use for Windex. So it does the same purpose once it hit those surfaces, top, bottom, and all around, bus windows, seats. So if you can visualize that, you can put it in different types of machines, which we have in our possession today, and get the same effect
So do
and
you
still
guys-
battle.
Do transportation have those same type sprayers that Mr. Cook?
We use his sprayers, and we have the red bottles that you saw in one of their slides. All of our drivers were issued bottles. They've been bottled to death since March, and they're getting the hang of it. So we've been utilizing the same equipment or utilizing the spray bottles until the additional equipment arrive. But we've been battling, and we've been tested through our summer program, and it works. So that bus, that sick bus, as we call it, will remain out of rotation for 24 hours, get that thorough cleaning, get that sit time before it's put back into rotation. And again, that will help us to mitigate the spread of the disease. So in closing, I'd like to say that in transportation, that is our target goal. It's always our goal to transport to and from safely and do it in a timely manner. But now we've added goal of let's help battle and mitigate the spread of this disease. So it's going to be new for my team. Many of them are hearing me talk on what our plan looks like for the first time. So I'd like to ensure them that we're going to give them the training that they need to add this piece. And it is not a big piece. As I said, some of the drivers who are currently working summer school has had an opportunity to use what we are talking about today. So we're going to help them through that. We're going to work closely with school staffs to do what we need because every campus is different. I actually went out to Bellevue Santos earlier this week and met with the principal because she was looking at doing some changes with how she load of the location of buses coming in and out. And she had a couple of different options in place. The first ideal option was not workable. The second option was. So we worked through that, and that's what it takes. I have to go out to them, they have to come to me, but we have to meet where the need is and work through all those obstacles. We will get through the battle.
Let me ask a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm probably, and y'all, please don't take offense because I'm asking questions, but I need to ask questions. Because when we walk out of here today, the community needs to know that we have things in place and that we've worked through and talked through these things because we're getting the questions. How is the communication piece between the school to the transportation department? If a kid is sent home from school sick or whatever, and they've been told they can't come back or whatever for 10 days, that kid shows up the next morning at the bus stop, what's going to happen with the bus driver? What's going to happen with that kid getting on the bus? Is there, who's communicated to the transportation department? Mark, you get what I'm saying? Who's communicated that piece to them to know not to put this kid on the bus? Or are they going to bring that kid to school on the bus and then let the school handle it again, and now everybody on the bus has been possibly exposed?
Understood. So let me share with you what has happened during summer school. We were notified by the school of the sick child and the bus number because that's critical. We need to know, if you can give us the student ID number, we can look up the bus number, but hopefully the child did come in on that bus. So what they've been providing is what bus that child came in on. And so we've been going out, pull that bus out of rotation, do the clean down, notify all that need to be notified. And what happens now when that child comes back, because we may or may not receive notification that mom now has clearance from the pediatrician
Right.
or doctor to bring that child back. We don't know that.
Right.
When a child arrives at the bus stop, we leave no child behind. Unless, if there's a parent there and we can have a conversation, and if the parent can take them in, that's different. But many of our children are not there with a parent. We do not leave a child behind. So that's when that empty seat comes in play. Provide a mask, put them on the front seat. When we get to the school, meet with officials. I know Johnny was out yesterday ill. Johnny rode in this morning, just want to make you aware. The school is going to have more knowledge of Johnny being there, and if they don't, they would take Johnny straight in and find out if
Yeah.
things were taken care
If
of.
that parent was being cantankerous and just saying, I'm bucking the system, that's another bus out of rotation.
Absolutely.
Good thing we had the money to buy some buses.
So a student can be like to the bus driver, the student can be visibly ill, like could be very ill and still enter that school bus with well children.
Yes, especially if there's no parent at the stop, we can't leave that child at the stop.
It's liability on us, yeah. I think we need to have something in place, this is just Cummings, that if a kid is sent home, the parent needs to try to bring that kid back to school the next day versus putting them on the bus. We have to try to alleviate as much spread as we can and overworking our transportation folk. That's why I keep saying this thing is moving. We're shooting at moving targets, and we got to talk this stuff out. So please don't be offended because we're asking these questions, but we need to do what's right.
Not at all, Reverend Cummings, and that's a great idea. I like that idea. It's a work in progress, and we have to
And
work
that parent
together.
needs
So
to
I
bring that-
appreciate the question.
That parent needs to bring that kid back to school with the doctor's note.
And that can be done because like the first week of school, students that are an extended day, they don't ride the bus that morning.
No.
So I know that can be done because we do it at the beginning of the year.
I'd like to remind the board that if a student is sent home, they will remain home for at least 10 days until we get a doctor's note. So they can't come back the next day.
But if you got one of those,
But if they're at the bus stop, because parents are sending them, regardless of what the school has said, we need to have a process in place.
and there was an incident this week we talked about at one school where the grandma said they're going back the next day. And if they'd have been on the bus, you would have been obligated to pick that kid up and bring him to school. And here we go again, another day of possibly exposing folks to this
It
situation.
goes back to what we've hit on multiple times this morning, that this is a collective team effort.
Yeah.
Communication has to be clear to the parent that the student cannot come back to school until they meet the requirements.
And how's the communication from the school to the bus driver about this kid has been sick, sent home sick? How do we need to let them know? How's that piece happening? What does that look like? How's the school letting your people know, or are they telling your zone directors?
So
this
we've
kid?
been receiving calls directly from the school, and it could be the principal, dean, or the clerical person in attendance.
Okay.
But we have been receiving those calls. What is critical about it, I've been telling my staff, when they receive those calls, they're required to shoot me an email immediately and then follow up with a call, so that I know where that bus is, what has been relayed, and ensure that it's being taken out of rotation.
Because I would think that as a kid is being moved out, or went through the clinic or whatever, that somebody at that school would immediately send transportation email, as well as you forward to your zone director, hey, this bus needs to come out, and this kid shouldn't be on the bus in the morning. That if we miss anywhere in that communication piece, we're gonna have a big problem.
Well,
Maybe
a
there
good,
should be a checklist, a checklist when a child shows symptoms,
These are the things you need.
that these are the things that have to happen on every single child, and transportation, if they're a bus rider, has to be a part of it.
Agree, and one of the things we talked about is these need to be in writing and not just verbal.
Right.
So you can refer back to them and you can date stamp them.
Right.
And that's why I like the email, and that's what I require of my staff. Yes, you received the call, but I want it in an email
Yes.
format with a 1, 2, 3, 4. So I appreciate the question. I welcome them because it's helping us work through. We can't look at every area, and as I share my day on the bus with you, you see gaps, you see holes where we need to fill to ensure that safety. So I appreciate it. I welcome it so that we can put great plans in place to ensure the safety. You know, we can't cover every hole, but we need to be able to listen to feedback.
Yeah, we need to have some dirt ready to throw on some holes, though.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
We may have some precedents here too in when students get suspended from school or suspended off the bus. There has to be some type of protocol where the kid's just not showing up at the bus stop the next day, or if they do, you know, how is that handled? And let's not confuse the community by saying that the kid's being suspended because of COVID. That it's two completely different things, but perhaps with a similar procedure in terms of making sure that they're out of school for the amount of time that they're supposed to be out of school.
Yes, and now we have experienced that in the past, and that's always happening because here's the gap. A child is suspended, the driver knows it because we get notification, he or she are out for 3 days. But after 1 day, the child shows up at the stop. So again, the driver said, you know, I thought you were suspended. Well, they reversed it. So we bring that driver in, that child in, and when they arrive on campus, we notify the school. So we're not getting that notification prior, because it could have happened late in the evening.
Right.
But that's something we can build in. If they would shoot that email to me and my 2 area specialists, we could then shoot it out to the coordinators saying, hey, Susie's going to be back on the bus tomorrow. But yes, that happens quite often, but we don't decline. We do not deny transportation. We bring them in and we let the school help us in figuring that out.
And what you just said about something as simple as an email, you know, the communication chain, we're going to get a lot better at this, and that's just going to help us going forward in every piece of what we do in terms of coordination. And I was also thinking about, you know, we're used to adjusting bus routes for all kinds of reasons. So it's a challenge, but I love the idea of routing so that kids are loaded from the back to the front. That just makes total perfect sense.
And can we possibly do something, when we explain these protocols to bus riders and everything to parents, maybe we need to say this stuff up front at the beginning part of the school that, hey, these things, if your kid has gone home, they cannot come back on that bus tomorrow, you got to bring them back. Maybe when they come to pick their kid up, maybe they need to sign something saying that they understand that they can't put that kid back on the bus. We got to limit, we have to limit as much as we can. And it takes liability off of us, off of you guys, off of all of us. Because I can just hear my phone ringing about parents saying, you guys knew that kid went home yesterday, and y'all let him get back on the bus with my kid the next morning, and y'all didn't do anything about it.
But he couldn't get back on the bus, could he? Because he's been.
If they showed up at the bus stop, they could get on that bus.
That's what she's saying. She doesn't make
And that's what we're saying. We got to put as many things in place. And I'm not saying just overkill anything, but we want our parents to know that we are trying to do what's right for these kids.
Because if the mother says she didn't get the call, and, well, if she got the call
Right.
from the school to take the child home.
Right.
And she knows not to bring the child back to school.
So maybe at the beginning of the year,
Acknowledging that.
maybe at the beginning of the year, we start sending that stuff home day one of school, and then they have signed something when they come pick that kid up. You're not to bring that kid's not to be at the bus stop. You need to bring them back with the doctor's note clearing them.
Chairman Cummings, one of the things to that note is that we're looking at, I think it's important to do a return to school plan and send information out in advance.
Yes.
We talk a lot about training of our staff, which is critically important, but we need to educate and send that out in advance prior to returning.
That's why we need this
It's
time.
like a whole different piece this year.
Right.
Preparing to
It's all
return.
proactive planning.
Preparing to return.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Cook, Mr. Leopard, Ms. Roy, thank you guys this morning.
You're welcome.
Thank you for wiping
Thank
too.
you. I was wondering when that was going to.
Hit the microphone too. Hit the microphone.
Are the wipes still not the good? We should be doing that every time.
Let me find one more.
In the clicker, in the clicker.
I think he did, Mike.
Philip. Philip, the clicker, too. Philip.
Yeah, hold on, stop. We're gonna do public comment on this one.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on, JC. Any public comment on that particular slide? Any public comment on that particular presentation? And I know some of you guys have just put down, but come on up if you got something. Yeah, we're going to, listen, let me say this, and that's why I'm stopping right now, letting public comment. We have to stop at 10:45. We're gonna recess at 10:45. So JC, be prepared to come back after. Yeah, that's why I'm allowing this right now. We're gonna, we have to recess at 10:45. We have to reconvene another meeting at 11 o'clock for budget. And then after that budget meeting, which should take about 10, 15 minutes, we'll come back and reconvene this meeting. Go ahead, Bishop Stoddard.
Public comment on what just happened?
Just happened.
All right. Well, Bishop Stockton, NAACP, 484 Emerald Road, Ocala, Florida, 34472. I want to say that I do appreciate what just happened, but I want to also add, I think for the community standpoint, as much information, parental consents, and things of that nature up front is going to be imperative. I want to make sure that we're clear that if a child is sent home, that parents already understand that that child cannot come back on that bus the next day unless they have brought the child to school at least one day. Like, so if a child gets sent home on a Monday, that parent, takes the child to the doctor, get a consent. That Tuesday, they need to bring the child to school with the consent so that then that information can be released to the school. My mother was a school bus driver, so I remember this, so that the child can then be put back on the bus. Maybe they'll go home on the bus that day or be at the bus the next day. If that information is not brought out in the beginning of school with the packet, that wonderful packet that most parents cannot stand to have to fill out every year, but it has to be in that information. And then when the child is picked up that day at school, they need to be reminded as part of the protocol that the healthcare facility person, whoever, remember that before Johnny can come back to school, you have to bring, especially if it's within the days that they're supposed to stay out. I think that's going to be very important because you will have that parent. You will. I've heard something that has made me very concerned all week long. In every meeting I go to, people say that the folks should do stuff because it's just common sense. My grandmama said all common sense ain't common. And so we got to make sure that we cover ourselves and our children and our bus drivers and our aides. And I'm still trying to figure out also, we say we know our children, but when we're watching traffic and we're trying to make sure they're crossing and things of that nature, I'm not going to have time to be looking at every child's eyes to see if they're a little dizzy or crazy or whatever. I still think there needs to be some temperature checks. There needs to be something to assure, to the best of our ability, that we have done our due diligence. And that might be difficult, but again, if you're driving a bus, we're already worried about kids crossing in front, crossing behind, children running late because we're watching traffic where kids are coming up and down. I might not have a chance to look at every child that comes on the bus because I'm trying to also make sure that people are not running the bus stop signal signs that we always hear the problems of, folk running, up past the bus. So again, I think we need to put another safety check for the safety of our school, of our for our kids and the bus drivers on the bus. I'm done.
Thank you. Any other comment on that section? We're kind of doing it a little bit differently because we want to try to. But yeah, any discussion, board members, on this presentation? Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and recess now. I think some of us need to go to another room for a minute, and so we're going to recess at 10:34.